Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the all new Richard Cooks podcast, the place where the only vibe that we're vibing on is a positive vibe. That's the only frequency that we're on. And if you haven't done so, I ask that you like, subscribe, and share this with as many people as possible. Today is a magnificent day. I hope that you have been kind to yourself. I hope that you have said nothing but great things about yourself and to yourself. Without further ado, I wanted to discuss or piggyback on what we were talking about or conversing about last week. We talked about taking taking a risk. Why is it difficult for us to take risk, and what do we have to do to take a risk to be great? To be great. And yes, last week we gave you the definition of taking a risk, and we defined taking a risk as a situation involving exposure to danger. A situation involving exposure to danger. We talked about the different elements of danger. Danger isn't always physical. It could be mental, it could be emotionally, it could be financial. When we talked about last week, we talked about taking a risk that could damage you egotistically. We talked about the risk of being embarrassed, and we gave Richard Cook's axiom of being embarrassed when I said embarrassment is only as good as the person that feels embarrassed. Let me give it to you again. Embarrassment is only as good as the person that feels embarrassed. If if they told you that you could win that lotto, that $1 billion lotto, but you had to run through mud, jump in a pig's pen, and eat hog mogs and chitlins, and it's totally against your principles, 9 out of 10 people would do it without feeling embarrassed. Why? Because the embarrassment is only as good as the person who feels embarrassed. And so we broke down, we broke down the things that prohibit us from being great. And 4 of the elements that we broke down are the voices that we hear. We broke those down into segments. The voice of others that we hear in our that's playing in our mind. The voice of God, the voice of the devil, and the voice of self. The voice of others, whether it be friends, whether it be family, whether it be associates. The voice of self, when we talk to ourselves daily and we beat ourselves up. It's the voice of God, the one that tells us to go left and to go right. But sometimes we don't, it may feel uncomfortable. And so we don't go left when he tells us to go left. We tend to go right. And then there's the voice of the devil, the devil that he's in our ear telling us to do the quickest way. It may not be the best way, the quickest way, and the evil way to get what we want. Those are the voices that are running through our mind that we hear. And a lot of them come from a comment that has created a complex in our mind that prohibits us from being all that we were called to be. So let's get right into it. Today's segment, we want to talk about the risk of being being great, and we want to talk about others. You know, the story is told of the tourist. The tourist, he's walking through the zoo. He noticed the elephant on the right-hand side. The elephant had a small stick attached to his ankle with a string attached to another stick that was in the ground. To his amazement, he knew that the elephant could easily break that stick and break that rope and walk away. He goes to the zookeeper and he asks the zookeeper, "Mr. Zookeeper, how is it that this elephant with this little stick that has a thin rope attached to another little stick that's in the ground that he could easily break, how is it that he hasn't broken the rope? Why? The zookeeper said it's simple. When he was a child, we attached that string, and as an infant, he couldn't break it. As he grew up, he never attempted to break it because he remembered back then when he attempted to break it, how it made him feel. And so as he grew older, his mind has been trained not to step outside the box, not to step outside that, not to try to break away from that rope. Why? Because he feels as if he can't. And so when he feels as if he can't, he won't. And a lot of us, whether it be with something that somebody said to us, we feel as if we don't have what it takes to be it. Not realizing or not looking at the person that said it to us. Let's go there. So let's talk about family. We have adopted, and it has infected us and affected us, our way of living, this slogan FOE. So when you look at people's Facebook, you'll see them say hashtag FOE, family over everything. When I grew up, it was always blood is thicker than water. But if you look at some of our family members, some of them are stuck. Yeah. And they can't see that some of our family members still live back in the 60s or still live back in the 70s, but we have esteemed them so much that we don't want to violate what they call their good grace. What does that mean? That means that we don't want to step outside and feel shameful. Yeah. Because we're so fixated, or we have esteemed them so much that we don't want to go out and open a business, or we don't want to go out and become a teacher. Why? Because the family, the hierarchy of the family, or the lineage of the family is, granddad was a preacher. Great granddad was a preacher. Great granddad was a preacher. And so now what has been placed in a specific person's mind to the next generation is that person feels as if they had to be a preacher. Yeah. So that the guilt has prohibited us from propelling or moving forward. Family over everything. Sometimes we allow family to supersede our purpose, so much so that we want to stick and we dummy down to family. Yeah. We dummy down to family. We don't even pay attention to the fact that the person that's saying whatever they're saying, that you shouldn't be that, or you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't try to be that, you shouldn't go there, you shouldn't try to be a doctor. That's just too much. It's too much school. It's going to leave you with a big debt. You shouldn't be there, but it's your dream. But they are speaking into your life according to their experiences. You're not looking at the fact that they still have a flip phone. Yeah, you're not looking at that. You're not looking at the fact that they never aspired to be in life. Family. Yeah. And so we pay attention more to what they're saying more than what we know to be true. What do you mean by that, Cook? What do we know to be true? we know that there's more in us. There's more greatness in us than what the eye can see. Your greatness is not seen by others. Yeah, yeah. Let me say this. Nobody can see your greatness. No. No, nobody can see your greatness. It's always revealed. It's always revealed. Whenever you take a stalk of corn, you have to peel it down. You have to peel it down in order to get to the core. And sometimes we have to go through things in life that God has to peel it down. Peel it. But we have allowed friends, and we have allowed comments from associates, and we have allowed comments from our family members to keep it up, to keep us in a boundary or keep us bound. We haven't set boundaries. We haven't set boundaries. No. We allow them to come over and penetrate our psyche to the degree that we become like the proverbial ostrich, and we go stick our head in the ground. Every time we have a good idea, we don't want to bring it to granny. We don't want to bring it to auntie. We don't want to bring it to our cousin. Why? Because we're so worried about what they're going to think about us that we never want to do it. I remember when I was in college, right? When I was in college, before I went to college, and I'm going somewhere with this. Before I went to college, when I was in high school, and I had gotten suspended like so many times. I was just the worst in high school. My mother had just had a major operation. They had put me out of high school. She had just had a major operation, and so she's limping to try to get me back in school. The first place that she went to, she went down to the headquarters. The headquarters said, "No, we're not letting them back in." So she comes up to the high school to speak with my English teacher. He said, "Ma'am, sit down right here." He sat down next to her. I sat in front of him. He said, "Let me tell you something about your son." He said, "Your son is an animal." He said, "He needs to be locked up in a cage somewhere. He doesn't deserve to be in this school." My mother just started crying profusely. "You have a bad child." She went around to the principal. Principal echoed the same thing. Said I would be locked up by the time I was 18. Family members told me that. I had a close family member told me I needed to be locked up in a cage. Friends' family told me that I needed to be I needed to be locked up in a cage. Little did they know is that really wasn't me, but I was just, trying to, my father really wasn't around, so I was just trying to fit in. So I would do things to try to fit in. And so you fast forward, that's when I was 16. That's when I was 17. And so you fast forward, God tells me to go to school, not to go to any school, but he told me to go to a law school, predominantly white law school. But those voices of others, those voices of family played heavy in my mind. To the degree that when he told me to go to school to go get my bachelor's, I went to a HBCU because I thought that was the easy way out, and I didn't think I was worthy enough to go to a white school because I'm thinking in my mind here, 20-something years later, that I'm bad. That ain't no good in me. They're not going to let my type in there. I'm bad. I go to the HBCU. HBCU didn't want to fund me. And shout outs to all HBCUs, but I'm just telling my story. At HBCU didn't want to give me any kind of financial aid. They made it extremely difficult. I paid my $150 application fee. Made it extremely difficult for me to go. God said, go to the white school and apply there. God, I don't want to go there because I don't want to be embarrassed. Do it. A friend of mine, Denise, my buddy's girlfriend, she said, Cook, go down there. I go down there. I fill out the application. I went through some things. I got accepted. And God planted someone in the financial aid office that every semester she made sure that my college semester was funded. In other words, it was free of charge. Why? Had I listened, I was so busy trying to listen to the voice of others, the voice of family that called me an animal, that called me a beast. Had I listened to those voices, I wouldn't have never taken the risk of being the first in the family with a degree. I may have been the worst in the family growing up, but then I became the first in the family. And a couple of days, a couple of classes prior to me graduating, I had another family member, close family member, who tried to talk me out of graduating. Oh, you can go and you can go ahead and just get a job and excel in a job without that degree. No, I want to leave a legacy. But that family member was stuck on their thought process, on where they were in life. And sometimes family don't want you to be the breakout kid. Are you hearing me? And so we want to live up to certain families' expectations when God wants you to live beyond their expectation. He wants to blow everybody's mind about you. But you have to be willing to set some boundaries. That's the first thing that you have to do. There's a difference between setting a boundary and boundaries. A boundary, my friend, still allows the voices of others, the voices of family, and the voices of the voices of others, which is the family, associates, and friends, to penetrate. That means that if their vibe or their frequency is low, they can come over the wall of your boundary. They can come around the wall of your boundary, or they can come underneath the wall of your boundary and penetrate and be that poison that prohibits you from taking that risk. But no, my friend, you have to set boundaries. Boundaries. That means that you have to insulate yourself from the small-minded opinions of others. You have to evict the voices of that person from many, many years ago that said that your head was too big, or you're too overweight, or you're just too short to be anything. Yeah, you have to evict that person. You have to evict that person who said that you're not tall enough, who said that, you talk with a lisp. And so your articulation is not that good. You have to evict that voice. Yeah. Because quiet as it's kept, those people have their own lane. But you allow them to come over into your lane. And what happens when somebody comes into your lane unannounced, without a blinker on? And if you're not looking and they blindside you, what happens? It causes an accident. So the first thing that you have to do is remove your boundary and create some boundaries. Boundaries. Because somewhere along the line, you have, like the elephant in Indonesia, they have this thing called Fajan. Fajan means, and if you look it up, it's Phajan. Look at the video. It's where they break the spirit of the elephant. They put him in a cage and they break his spirit. And oftentimes, that voice of others, the voice of family, the voice of friends, has somewhere along the line broken our spirit of taking a risk to be great. Our spirit of taking of greatness. Yeah. You are so much better than that. So it's time to create some boundaries. What are the boundaries? The boundaries are, number one, I'm not going to let anybody talk down to me. Yeah. I don't care who they are. Some of us think that because they're family that they can say any and everything to us. No, babe. No. We're not going to allow people to just say anything, and that goes for ourselves. We're not just going to say any and everything to ourselves. We have to create some boundaries to get those voices out. The second boundary that we have to do is that we have to start thinking healthy and start inspiring ourselves. The reason the family members, the reason the associates, the reason the friends have gotten in next to us or taken up residence around us is because why? It's because we esteem them so much. We esteemed in our mind what they think about us, how they feel about us, and if we violate what they may think or do to us. We've esteemed that. And so we have to be like Geronimo and just jump out there. Risky business and all. Risky business and all. You can't allow the voices of others to damage you to the degree that you don't aspire anymore, that you're not inspired anymore. No. I have a friend of mine, and I'm going to close with this. I have a friend of mine. She moved down to Atlanta to be in a music video. She was an aspiring actress. And so she said she stood in line. She was trying to be in a Jeezy video. She said, Cook, I stood in line for 12 hours and I just knew that I wasn't going to make it because there were so many women that looked better than me. And so I stood in line for 12 hours. And I just noticed that these women, they weren't getting any kind of, they just were being dismissed. They look better than me, but they don't look good on camera. And so finally I had my breakthrough. And so I was in this video, I was in that video. And so I started dating celebrities. I dated a guy that played for the Miami Dolphins. I dated a guy that played for the Atlanta Hawks. I dated a guy that played for the New York Jets. And see, all of those, all of what they said to me, it damaged me. They said that when, she said, so now to the degree that's all I date is ugly guys. I don't want to date anybody that's handsome. I don't want to date anybody that looks good, that has money, because I don't want to worry about. It's too risky. I don't want to get my feelings hurt anymore. She said, because when I would date the guy from the Atlanta Hawks, we will be out at dinner, and he would literally try to holler at the waitress in my face. She said, all of the celebrities, all of the sports guys that I dated, they made me feel less than, either in deed or by word. Yeah. So now I only date ugly guys. She said, Cook, if you even try to holler, I wouldn't even holler at you. And that's where we are. Somebody said something to us that made us feel less than. And now we want to date ugly. We want to romanticize. And I'm not just talking about that when I speak date ugly. We want to date mediocrity. Mediocrity, whether it be just doing our regular routine, getting up, eating, sitting down at the table, looking at The Price is Right. We want to date mediocrity, looking at Netflix, binge watching. We want to romanticize mediocrity, always going to the latest lounge, talking to people with whom we don't know, who can't get us from A to Z. We want to date mediocrity. We're dating ugly. And now it's time, after listening to this broadcast, for you to start dating beautiful. What is beautiful, Cook? Beautiful is when you are willing to take a risk to date something that you've never dated before. I remember when I was in undergrad, I took this marriage counseling class, and they had this guy that came in and was a guest speaker. And he talked about, his topic was, don't be afraid of pretty. Don't be afraid of pretty. And he talked about, oftentimes people never approach pretty because the risk of being shut down by pretty. And sometimes we don't approach pretty, whether it be a pretty job, whether it be a pretty car, because in our mind, we think that we can't afford the car note. In our mind, we think that we can't get past and get the degree, that we're never going to be able to have time to take the classes, that we're never going to be able to get our real estate license and take these houses. We don't want to date pretty. And my friend, sometimes it has to get ugly before it can get beautiful. The second thing is, and I'm going to close with this. The second thing that you have to do, the first thing is that you have to break down the boundary and create boundaries. The second thing that you have to do is that you have to go deep down inside of yourself, and you have to divorce yourself from the opinions of family, from the opinions of friends, from the opinions of associates. You have to spend time with yourself. Yeah. You got to spend time with you, baby. When is the last time you spent time with you and learn things about yourself and where you are trying to go at in life? When is the last time that you've spent time with the person that you see in the mirror every day? The person you spend the most time with. When is the time that you're going to spend time? I'm talking about quality time. Because if you spend quality time with you, then their voices don't even matter. Yeah. I told you about my family. Call me up. I don't know why you going to school. You can go ahead and get a job. You need to just stop going to school. You don't need to go to school no more. remember, I remember I was there with my grandmother. My grandmother passed the phone to another family member. This was when I was young. I was like 24 or something like that. Yeah, my family member said, "You're an animal. You're still an animal. You're still an animal." And that voice is stuck with me for some time. Do I talk to that family member? No. You can't listen to me. Listen to me. Forgiveness, you can forgive a person, but that doesn't mean that you have to be around that person. Let me say that to you again. You can forgive a person, but that doesn't mean that you have to be around that person and or converse with that person. Because a lot of us stick around family that hurt us. Oh, you forgave them. That's all that needed to be done. But there's no sense in you still sticking around, reminding yourself. You're supposed to be out there taking risk, not taking the risk of keep getting your feelings hurt. No, you can't be afraid to cut friends off. You can't be afraid to cut associates off. Why? Because you were not born to dwell, to live on Foolish Avenue or Foolishness Avenue or Hurt Street or Stress Boulevard. You were not born for that. God created you for so much more. You can't be afraid to cut them off. So let's go through it again. The first thing is that you have to, what, family? You have to take down the boundary and create boundaries. The second thing you have to do is spend time with yourself. Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true." To thine own self be true. The third thing is you can't be afraid to divorce a family member. You can't be afraid to divorce a friend. You can't be afraid to divorce an associate. Why? Because the object is to get their voices out of your mind so that you can take the risk of being great. Today has to be the day, my friend, where you take a close examination of yourself. Yeah. And look at and see where you're being deficient at. You know, some deficiencies you don't have enough power in you to do it. That's why you need not confidence, but confidence. What is that? That's God plus confidence. Yeah. Today is the day where you have to make a decision. Either I want to take the risk of being great, or I want to sit here and just die in mediocrity. Because anything that's stagnant, that doesn't grow, it withers. It withers. And at the end of the day, you don't have anybody else to blame but self. So from this day forward, my friend, I want you to take an opportunity. Start taking a risk. Divorce the voices of others. And don't be afraid. Don't be shameful. Don't feel guilty. Because at the end of the day, God gave you this life to live. You were never born to live your life for others. but you were born to live your life for you so that others can benefit and look at you and say, I would love to take a risk like they did. I would love and aspire to be as great as they were. Yeah, yeah. Today is the day. I want you to repeat these words after me as I close. I divorce the voices of others. I divorce the voices of my naysayers. I divorce the voices of my critics. I divorce the voices of those that don't mean me any good, that have criticized me, that has tried to minimize me. I divorce them right now. Self, I'm going to spend more time with you. I want to get to know you. I want to date you. I want to romanticize you. I want to take risks with you. Today is the day. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. Please subscribe, and comment and share. Every Monday we're here. If this broadcast has been a blessing to you, play it again and again and again and again until you get a down pack, baby. Because we have a journey. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. But one thing is for sure. We're going to take the risk that's needed to get to where we need to be, to get to the island of greatness. I love you, but God loves you best. Stay tuned.